Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning, afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you so much for joining us today. First of all, I would encourage you to turn on your camera so that we can see each other. So please do turn on your camera. It's such a great pleasure for me to be here and to welcome all of you to the third AsiaTEFL webinar. My name is Tanvir Kaur, and I am a pre-university educator at Desa Mahkota Form 6 College here in Kuala Lumpur. I will be the moderator for this webinar, and I'll be with you throughout our session. For your information, AsiaTEFL Webinar Series 2023 will take place every 2 months on the last Saturday of the month, which means we will hold 4 webinars in total this year, in May, July, September, and November. And this is the third webinar of the year. The fourth and last webinar for 2023 will be held on November 25th. As you know, our webinar theme today is exploring inclusive practices in ELT, creating equitable materials and curriculum design. We have 3 guest speakers who are experts in their own fields and are passionate about sharing their expertise and experience with inclusive practices in ELT. Our first speaker is Professor Dr. Yilin Sun from Seattle Colleges, USA. The second speaker is Dr. Artem Zadorozhiny from the Education University of Hong Kong. And the third speaker is Dr. Isavera Sirarungruang from Mahidol University, Thailand. I am so thrilled to share with you that there are more than 800 people from 54 countries around the world who registered their interest in attending this webinar today. We are remarkably a global presence, and we are certainly proud to be part of this diverse and vibrant ELT community that welcomes everyone, irrespective of who they are and where they are from. Next, I would like to announce that AsiaTEFL has a dual presidency, and we have 2 presidents. And they are Professor Suwarse Madhya and Professor Joo Kyung Park. To officially start off our webinar today, I would like to invite Professor Joo Kyung Park, President of AsiaTEFL, to give the welcome address.
Well, distinguished speakers, AsiaTEFL Advisory Board, Executive Council, Webinar Committee, and all my fellow members and future members of AsiaTEFL, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. Well, before I give you my speech, I'd like to introduce some of my core AsiaTEFL colleagues. First, do we have President Madhya, Suwarse Madhya? Maybe not yet. She will give us a closing remark at the end of this webinar. And now I'd like to introduce 2 of my presidents-elect. Professor Prakasi Sititiko, please wave your hand. Okay, and Professor Azea Wanho, are you with us? Okay, well, thank you for joining us today. And well, we have 5 vice presidents and over 30 executive council members, including 20 regional representatives who work so hard for our dearest organization, AsiaTEFL. Well, about a month ago, we had the 21st AsiaTEFL International Conference in Daejeon, South Korea, and online. It was a huge success, not only because we had a great turnout and quality presentations, but also and most importantly because we could confirm our friendship and collegiality among AsiaTEFL members and the conference participants who have common goals and passion about English language teaching in Asian contexts and cultures after a long break forced by COVID-19 pandemic. In our conference reflecting video played at the closing ceremony, we've heard and seen that for years we couldn't gather. The pandemic has kept us apart. Though online could we see the thirst for the human touch went unquenched. As time goes by, over the years we change, but our passion for English education remains. We are teachers always giving. We are learners always seeking. It's time to say goodbye. We have to break up now. Though we depart, we will meet again. Forever, we are AsiaTEFL, unity within diversity, diversity within unity. In AsiaTEFL, we will grow. Now here we are, though it's online, we gathered here together again to continue to grow personally and professionally in AsiaTEFL. So it's really, really nice to see you again, thanks to our webinar series. AsiaTEFL webinar series is the best gift ever that the pandemic has given to us. Ever since it was launched in 2021, it has evolved greatly and has become one of the most significant AsiaTEFL activities, attracting more than 700 to 900 registrants, just like today, and 300 to 500 attendees from many different parts of the world each and every time. I think the number one key to the success of our webinars is the excellent choice of the theme, which is highlighted by the great speaker lineup and the webinar committee's professional organization and management. And of course, we've had all the audience like you who have joined with great passion for learning and professional development. So you are the ones that make our webinar series worth most. So I truly thank you all. Well, this is the third webinar of this year, and its theme is Exploring Inclusive Practices in ELT, Creating Equitable Materials and Curriculum Design. I'd like to extend my gratitude to our three speakers, Professor Dr. Ilin Sun, Dr. Artem Zadorozny, and Dr. Isawara Sirirungruang, and our MC, Ms. Tamber Kaur-Sekon. I believe our ultimate goal to achieve as ELT professionals is to contribute to making a better world where all the people living life in peace, just like John Lennon sang in his song Imagine, as well as in prosperity, partnership, and a sustainable planet, which are the 5 dimensions of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And for this, it is certainly important and necessary to explore inclusive practices in ELT, and creating equitable materials and curriculum design is inevitable. So I'm thrilled to hear from our speakers about how we do it today. As president of AsiaTEFL, I'd like to take the opportunity to invite all of you to AsiaTEFL's other important activities, including our annual international conference, Scopus Index, the Journal of AsiaTEFL, and AsiaTEFL book series. I learned that today we have a lot of non-AsiaTEFL members. I'm sure you will become members shortly after this webinar series. And the 2024 AsiaTEFL will be held in Chiang Rai, Thailand in November 2024. And the call for presentations will be coming out soon. All the information on these events and activities are available at the AsiaTEFL website, www.asiatefl.org. Now, so please enjoy today's webinar, and I look forward to seeing you all again at our next webinar in November. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Ju Kyung Park, for your inspiring welcoming speech. Just in a few moments now, we will begin the session. Once again, a gentle reminder to those who have not registered for this webinar, please do so. This would be part of our database purpose, so we would appreciate it very much if you could sign in using the link and the QR code, as you can see on the screen. Thank you. Now, regarding your questions for our speakers today, during the session, please send your questions to an online question platform called Mentimeter. Please scan the QR code on the screen, or you can make use of the chat room. We will select your questions and have our speakers answer your questions during the Q&A session. With regards to e-certificate, we are delighted to inform you that we will provide an e-certificate for everyone who is attending this webinar. Therefore, you will need to complete an e-form, which we will display, where we will display a slide at the end of this webinar, and you can use the link or scan the QR code to fill in your form. And not to worry about the e-certificate, we will remind you about this later. For your kind information, the format of the webinar is as follows. The duration of this webinar is about 2 hours. In the first round, each speaker will be given 15 minutes to present. To ensure that the event runs smoothly and on time, I will give a verbal reminder when 5 minutes remain, and again when the time is up for each speaker. This will be followed by a Q&A session after all the speakers have presented, except that this time, the audience may ask questions to Professor Yilin right after her presentation, as she will be leaving earlier. Without further ado, please let me introduce the first speaker. Our first speaker for today is Professor Yilin Sun. Dr. Yilin Sun is a retired tenured professor, Professor Emerita, who directed faculty development programs at Seattle colleges from 2018 to 2021. She has held leadership roles, including serving as the president of TESOL International Association from 2014 to 2015, founding president of MAAL, Macau Association for Applied Linguistics, and president of WASL, Washington Association for the Education of Speakers of Other Languages in 2003 and 2007. Dr. Sun is highly experienced in ELT, teacher education, materials development, leadership, professional development, adult education, and program assessment. She's a prolific author and co-author, currently serving as chief editor for a series of Shanghai Foreign Language Education Press. Her forthcoming book, entitled The Development of Personal Learning Environments in Higher Education, will be published in 2024. In 2021, she was recognized by the U.S. Department of State for a lasting impact on the TESOL field. Dr. Sun has also delivered numerous keynote plenary presentations at national and international conferences. The topic Professor Dr. Yilin will be presenting today is constructing culturally responsive teaching materials and curriculum for student achievement. Ladies and gentlemen, just a quick reminder before I invite Professor Dr. Yilin is that she'll be leaving earlier just right after her presentation. So please scan the QR code on the screen and share your questions for Dr. Yilin via Mentimeter as she'll be leaving earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our first speaker, Professor Dr. Yilin Sun.
Thank you so much, Samvia, for your kind introduction. It's really a great pleasure for me to be here and then with the panel presenters and with all this wonderful audience and then my AsiaTEFL colleagues here. Yes, and without further delay, I'm going to start my presentation because I only have 15 minutes. So before I start the presentation, I would like to, send my, sincere, appreciation to the organizers of this AsiaTEFL Professional Network webinars, Professor Pragasya, and then Professor Savika and Ms. Tambir Sakong for your moderation and all these invited panelists that I'm meeting now. I wish I could stay, and maybe I'll stay a little bit longer to hear this, and then before I go to bed, and also all the participants. It's so wonderful to see we have more than 100, and maybe later will be 200 people joining the webinar. So that's really speaks a lot about people's passion about English language teaching, especially about this topic. In my topic, because I only have 15 minutes, but I have so much to share, and I want to talk about these three main points, but I will only superficially touch each one just a little bit. And I hope later we will have more opportunity to explore each topic at much more depth. The first one is, why do we need inclusive practices in ELT? And what are the culturally responsive pedagogies or culturally responsive teaching approaches? And what must be considered when constructing culturally responsive teaching materials and curriculum? So since I'm the first speaker, so I probably will talk more at the theoretical and some points. I'm sure my partner webinar presenters will give more specific detail. I do have examples, but I don't think I have time to share all of them. Why inclusive practices? I thought about these 10 reasons, and then I'm not going to elaborate on every one of them, but you can see it on my screen, and then you can take a look at that. So these are really the reasons that we have to practice inclusive teaching. And not only just to promote diversity, equity, foster a positive learning environment, enhance learning outcomes, more importantly, really will encourage critical thinking and problem solving. And I did an ILA presentation in Lyon this July. We talked about these issues. That was well received. And also reduce stigmatization, stereotype biases, and then special needs students from marginalized backgrounds, and then sometimes their voices are overlooked, and also that can reflect real world communication, and also sometimes it's a compliance with the legal or ethical requirements. So to me and to everybody, it's a practical necessity and a moral imperative that we have to do inclusive practices that guided by culturally responsive pedagogies. So next one that I'm going to talk is one of the culturally responsive pedagogies. It is a asset-based pedagogies that we know that it's a very direct response to deficit models of education of the past. In the past, we would think student learning problems is the student problems. Actually, asset-based pedagogies will view lived experiences and knowledge from diverse student background as asset, not deficit, focusing on building academic rigor and closing equity gaps for all students to succeed. Just at the AsiaTEFL conference, I think back in August, I gave a session about asset-based pedagogies. So, and then I'm not going to elaborate more on that. I gave examples, I gave things, and also promote critical thinking to constructive problem solving. Sometimes we always talk about problems, critical thinking. Don't stop thinking at the thinking level. Do some critical action to take critical actions and to foster constructive social changes. And then culturally responsive teaching started actually. It's the culturally relevant pedagogy by a scholar, Gloria Latson-Billings, in her influential book, article published by American Educational Research Journal back in 1995. And her work really looked at the 4 dimensions: academic success, culturally competence, and then critical consciousness, and the advocacy and role. And then other scholars like Geneva Gay and other scholars expanded to culturally responsive teaching, culturally sustaining pedagogies, and then the other scholars as well. When people think about, oh, culturally responsive teaching, okay, we're going to teach about multicultural education or social justice education. It's not just about that. Even though they are closely related, culturally responsive teaching is about building student learning power and brain power by improving the information processing skills and building especially a sense of belonging using culturally relevant learning tools. I shared some of the tools back at the conference. So today I'm not going to talk more about those things. Actually, it is grounded in social cognitive neurosciences. So when we say it's so important to implement inclusive practice and guided by culturally responsive teaching, so what are the considerations? First, we have to shift our mindset, a paradigm shift. As I mentioned earlier, when we talk about achievement gaps, historically always blame student learning problems. My students are not motivated, or they are not college material, they are not ready for academic study, so on and so forth. Right now, more and more educators, leaders, really looking at this as institutional leadership learning problems, as the practitioners' learning problems, because the institution was set as the colonized Western system, not prepared for diverse student learning body. And also our practitioners, we were not trained to how to help diverse student population. So we have to look at that's our problem rather than as learning problems of our students. When we go to workshops or conferences, it's good to learn some strategies or best practices. More importantly, we have to shift our mindset to equity, looking at opportunity gaps, looking at the challenging curriculum gaps, looking at the deficit mindset in materials and assessment. So I like this from equity talk to equity walk. We have to walk the talk. I like to share an example from Gonzalez, one of the a middle school teacher, talking about making student asset or teaching number one. That's how we use really asset-based, inclusive, practices. From all my EL learners can't speak English to what languages I add as, because students speak more than one language. Can my ELs, the students speak? Or they are not able to read on the grade level? To how can I accommodate this textbook? What resources are available so that we can help them to read? So from deficit point perspective to asset perspective, I don't know how to help my English language learners to who can I reach out for support? Where can I learn more to support them? All my students seem off task, angry, not happy. So look at me. How can I make my classroom environment more engaging, inviting, and safe? And also at the conference, I shared more examples about asset building and also how we do assessment from that. And then, so I'm not going to repeat what I said over there. And more considerations we need to have, really look at, I love Nick Alice's this article. Really look at frequent rich participation in our student life worlds into which the learners bricolage his or her way as both the starting point and ending point for our curriculum and teaching material development and activities. And also we need to look at representations and inclusion. What are the voices that are missed? Marginalized voices, which is what are the overlooked content? And also, how can we build academic rigor and a sense of belonging? We talk about the inclusion. Inclusion is important. If you can include a person in your classroom, if the person doesn't feel that he or she belongs to this class, belongs to this community, nothing is going to happen. So we have to focus on what we can do to build a sense of belonging. Sense of belonging is more important than just say inclusion. Inclusion has been, to me, it's an overused word. And we really have to focus on building sense of belonging. And then new 21st century skills. Okay, I'm going to skip the other part and I'll focus on what are the new 21st century skills. This traditional, the 7 C's, the 21st century skills, everybody's familiar with. I'm going to quickly pass that one. I will add, there are 5 more skills, especially since before, just right at the pandemic and now. Scholars feel that there are 5: resilience, agility, adaptability, STEM skills, and a SMAC, social mobile analytics and cloud skills. So, and I will go fast. I'm sorry. Yes. So, and
you have 5 more minutes, Professor Yilin.
5 minutes, sure. Yes. Okay. These are the survey. Look at this, the SMAC. We'll look at SMAC. And also, based on all these skills that we need to help students to make sure that we have inclusive, practices, I'm going to propose these 9 guiding principles for integrating inclusive, culturally responsive teaching practices. This is adapted from a forthcoming book by Rutledge, the development, like you mentioned earlier, of personal learning environments in higher education, promoting culturally responsive teaching and learner autonomy. So I propose these 9 guiding principles. The first important one is unpack our personal inclusive biases, focus on personal cultural lens, and then shift the paradigm to EDIA. And then also embrace this. So I only have 5 minutes and I will go very fast. And then, so these are the 9 guiding principles. Maybe later we can talk more. So let's look at the practice and strategies. Here are 16 key strategies I considered really important. Last week, I gave a talk at Chinese National Research Forum, high-end research forum on teaching material, foreign language teaching material research. I talked about these 16 key strategies. Today, unfortunately, 5 minutes, I'm not going to talk about this, but I will just focus on cultural audit. we really have to really scope and then go back to the materials we have to see if there are any biases, stereotypes, or gaps in representation, and then check that. I love these images. Look at who is scientist, who is coaching children's homework. Really break those stereotypes. Here are some suggested, I feel, very useful online resources that the educators we can use. Agitopia has a lot of excellent materials about inclusive practices. Mathematica has some really things, and Educational Northwest, and then Change Kids' Lives. I love this one. Inclusive Schools. Another one that I like a lot is the American Psychological Association. They have an inclusive language guideline, really looking at the language that we use in our textbooks and the curriculum. How can we break that? And then this one, the diversity in digital media, breaking stereotypes one illusion at a time. Really look at how can we change the media images of those stereotypes about the people. Yeah, so I thought that I'm going to just share this. And then these are the 9 guiding principles I shared earlier. Here are some of the sample practices that I used and then did before. So let me end my talk. So English language teaching in the changing global world, it's really about cultivating equity, committed, reflective, resilient, innovative English language educators as leaders. We have to consider ourselves. We are all leaders in our field. So we have to lead the inclusive practices. And it is about building culturally responsive teaching guided academic rigor to close equity and achievement gaps. I talked about that at a conference on I didn't have time to talk about this today. Integrate asset-based, culture responsive pedagogical principles and the inclusive practices to support student success beyond the ELL classroom. This is the goal for our learning. So thank you so much for being at this webinar. I hope I opened a can of worms. I'm sure that later, speakers will share more, and then we can complement each other. And also, I think I opened a lot of food for thought. And then, so thank you. So I will stop my 15-minute presentation here. If any questions, I would love to hear from you. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see chat better.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Yilin, for the wonderful presentation. Please share your questions if you have any via Mentimeter or in the chat box. There's one question so far, Professor Yilin, but before I pose the question, let me just summarize what you have said. So Professor Dr. Yilin has discussed the importance to create cultural responsive teaching materials and curricula that prioritizes equity, diversity, inclusion, and access. And she's also provided helpful insights and practical strategies for ELT educators, where she encourages us to adopt a more positive and asset-based building attitude. Is that right?
Asset-based.
Asset-based, okay.
Yes.
And she has also shared with us the 9 guiding integrating inclusive CRT practices, and she has also lastly she suggested some useful online resources for us. Thank you so much, Dr. Yilin. And now we will move on to the Q&A session. As we understand, you have to leave. The question is, how can we address inclusive practices in ELT at policy level? How can we address inclusive practices in ELT at policy level?
This is an excellent question. Yes, at the policy level, it's imperative. It's paramount important because the policymakers, they're the ones, they need to have the awareness. Before my retirement, I directed our university's faculty development program. So we did a lot of training for leaders and then really raise the awareness. They have to be on board with it. And I'm sure those leaders, I think the leaders right now, nowadays, if you look at any university's website, nobody It's not talking about the diversity, inclusion, and then equity. But how can we bring them? What we need to do is to bring them to walk the talk. Remember I mentioned, and then really give some, help them to, you can organize, if you're faculty, you can organize workshops and webinars, invite them to come. And also those leaders, they are required to attend training as well. And then to talk about this. And also what we need to do, we need to strategically hold those policymakers accountable. Because we have to build allies with them, making them on board, support us. So you need to be strategic. You need to let them to see the value. When we use inclusive practices, look at the tangible positive results. Because in my institution, we use the TILT in higher education 211. TILT stands for Transparency in Teaching and Learning. It's a research project, but for faculty across the discipline that to use that TILT. You TILT just 2 assignments for one of your course in one semester. You see tangible results, about 90% of student retention. Because policymakers, they love statistics, they love numbers, they love to see things that's working. Show those data to them, and then see these are the tangible results, and get the student to do testimonial speech, and then they are convinced, okay, this can help my institution to have retention, have this. So these are the things we can do. So what I say is strategically making them accountable, and then make them buy in to this practice. They can do it because we did it. I'm sure you all can do it. And actually the book that is coming out, I invited the chancellor to be the co-author with me for one of the chapters, looking at the administrative, educational equity from administrative perspective. He wrote a beautiful recommendations. Once the book is out by Routledge, I would encourage you to read it to see what he wrote. We collaborated together for that chapter. I was so pleased with how committed this, the top leaders, once they see the tangible results and they can do things. Excellent question. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Next
Thank you,
question.
Professor. We've got one more last question. The question is how, sorry, yeah. I've got, okay.
There's one. I see
Okay.
this one.
How to improve critical thinking in English language learning and teaching by integrating artificial intelligence. Everyone's talking about AI these days. The question is how to improve critical thinking in English language learning and teaching by integrating AI.
Okay, excellent question. We had just last week when I was at the National High-End Forum about the teaching material and the curriculum reform, that similar question was asked. Artificial intelligence, because I showed that 100 tools for 2023, and then the AI, ChatGPT, ranked the number 4. So it's coming, but AI is not human. AI cannot replace human brain. It can help us. And then actually we use the AI. AI, it's an excellent tool to help students develop critical thinking. What you can do is not let students rely on what ChatGPT or chatbot can generate for us. And then using the material they generated and then critique that. Because there is something that's always missing. They will not get there. And then you want to get, they don't have the human, the emotional intelligence. And they don't have this concrete example. They generated from the big database, and then they generated this material. It's kind of okay. And also another thing that interesting, you can do critical thinking. You can do a survey, and then you have your own data analysis, and then you let the AI to analyze the data for you. And then you can do a comparison to see what AI is missing. AI is good at certain points. They're quick. They can summarize things, but there are some nuances the AI cannot do it because it's not a human brain. It's just a AI, it's a robot. So, and then that way you can really emphasize the material. Another interesting thing that you can try is ask the AI, you can send a photo image. It's just really has a lot of problematic problems there. Please identify potential implicit biases for this image. You see what AI is going to come up. Lots of funny examples because they are not equipped with that. That would be a perfect place for students to do critical thinking. See, here are the things that AI cannot do it. And we can use AI to a certain extent, but certain things we have to use our brain to really identify the gaps that's missing. So that's the way that you can. So, and the student will realize I cannot rely on AI exclusively. AI has something missing. I need to find out the things, what is missing, why AI missed this one, how can I make this, a correction, and then to change that perspective, and then to avoid using that. So that will be a good way to develop critical thinking. Another thing AI is good at is to generate scenarios. AI is very good at generate. You say, create some case stories. AI is a very good storyteller. I tried. I asked the AI to create a story. I just gave them a very brief outline. Say, they can create a story. But the story, you ask the AI to generate 3 times. And then you can see the things kind of got looped around and round and round and coming back. And then you ask the student to identify what is missing in this story. What are the things that's not realistic? How can we change this? And this will be all excellent ways to use AI to help critical thinking. So I'll just stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Yilin. There's one last question
Mhm.
I'm going to ask from the audience. Yeah. Based from your experiences, what are the biggest challenges in implementing the inclusive CRT curriculum? What are the biggest challenges in implementing the inclusive CRT curriculum?
There are actually integrating culturally responsive teaching. It's fairly new, even though Gloria Latson's article was published back in 1995. Only recently, this approach has got into attention, into education, and then people are starting to talk about this. I think in our Asian context, because after AsiaTEFL conference, I went to China. I communicated with our Chinese colleagues. Very few people heard about it. And the challenge is there. Mindset, readiness. How can we really include that? And also willing to acknowledge our own biases, our own missing part, the ones that I mentioned. We have to admit it's our problem because we have not been prepared to help those students rather than blaming students. And these are, and also resources, because it's fairly new. We need to invest into professional development, give teachers time. Teacher only has 24 hours like anybody else. How much you want to squeeze teachers in the classroom? Leaders, administrators, please give your teachers some release time, some incentive to help them to really give them time to work in the community to develop cultural response teaching materials using local context, and also give them time to attend a professional development training workshops, and also develop materials and then funding resources. And leaders, I think, leaders on board is a challenge, and also teachers' time is a challenge, and also create an environment that values marginalized, systemically underserved students. That takes time, but it's not impossible. And yeah, these are a few biggest challenges. I think it's both top down and bottom up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true, Dr. Yilin. It's mindset, changing of mindsets that the most challenging change for us to sort of go ahead
to
with
even
change.
get ready to embrace the idea. and are willing to practice. And then
Yes.
sometimes you can be very uncomfortable because I've been doing this for many years now. At the beginning, even now, I constantly challenge myself because we all have implicit biases towards certain issues. We have to acknowledge, we have to being willing to be vulnerable and willing to open to new ideas and then to being criticized, to admit that we are still learning and that we have this issue. Yeah. So that's also, but by doing this, we can only get better and better, and also more and more people are on board. And then eventually, I'm very positive things are changing, things will get even better. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you once again, Dr. Yilin, for joining us today. Despite it being early in the morning there, we really appreciate your passion and commitment.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So yeah, now it's almost 12 midnight. So I'm afraid that I have to quietly take off. Yes, very best. So I hope, this is recorded. That's excellent. So later, I hope I can watch the recording. And then if you have more questions, feel free to email or send it to the moderator. I'll be happy to respond to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Good. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Continuing with our webinar, I would like to invite our second speaker, Dr. Artem Zarodozhny from the Education University of Hong Kong to present on harnessing informal digital learning of English IDL for inclusive learning. Dr. Artem is a Research Grants Council postdoctoral fellow at the Education University of Hong Kong. His research focuses on EFL students, digital literacy, informal learning, and the role of motivation in English language acquisition. His works have been published in the Computer-Assisted Language Learning and Recall journals, Eurocall, and Call Conference Proceedings. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Artem.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your introduction. Just want to confirm that everyone can see my slides and hear me well.
Yes.
Yes, wonderful. All right. So before I start, I just would like also to express my gratitude to be here or to present my thoughts, to dedicate and to participate further in Q&A session, because I believe it's a very important part, not only for me to be here to present my part, but also to receive questions and to have opportunity to receive feedback, to communicate further, because the topic proposed is a very crucial topic, and it's a very we can have multiple days sitting and discussing the topics. So I'm happy to be here, and I very much enjoyed the Professor Yilinson's presentation. It was extremely profound in the content. So I hope that some of my thoughts could also help you to understand the topic better, and we can discuss more on the topic from the other dimensions. So as you can see from the subtopic of this webinar, which I established, is harnessing informal digital learning of English for inclusive English learning. So before I continue, I just would like to talk briefly about me. So I'm from Kazakhstan. So I grew up in the environment where it was hard to find resources to develop English abilities. So that led me to be interested in computer-assisted language learning, to search for opportunities to develop my English skills using different digital tools, and which further progressed to my research interest, which is informal learning of English. So the unstructured and self-directed activities which are connected to the development of English. And also my second research interest is connected to digital literacy, and especially when we talk right now about the launch of ChatGPT and the public widespread of AI tools. So before I continue, when we talk about inclusivity, we can have multiple connotations. So as I only have 15 minutes today, my first step was to actually think about how to narrow down my topic and connect it to the scope of my expertise, which is informal learning and computer-assisted language learning. So in my talk, I want to conceptualize inclusivity as two broad concepts. So one of them has been mentioned by our first speaker, the equity, when we refer to the term that goes beyond, so that there's about equal and fair opportunities for learners. So in ELT, equity means that every student is provided with specific tools, opportunities they need to learn and succeed. So this may involve differentiated instruction, additional support for learners who need it, and the use of culturally responsive teaching practices, which have been mentioned by Professor Yulin Sun. So this equitable ELT underlines that learners come from different backgrounds. They have different needs and seek to address differences in fairness. But the second point is what also captured my attention is the accessibility. So in short, we can define it as easiness to engage with the learning environment, materials, and activities. So in inclusive ELT, accessibility could mean the materials and curriculum design that should account for diverse needs and abilities of students. And this could involve, of course, physical accessibility, but we also can talk about inclusivity by conceptualizing it as tailoring learning experiences to individual students' interests and needs, recognizing that every learner is unique and every learner deserves a personalized approach. So, of course, we can talk about multiple other conceptualizations, but I would like to point out these two main dimensions which I want to address today. So, of course, I needed to define some problems. And when we talk about inclusivity and about the connotations which I just provided, I tried to connect it to the context of my home country, Kazakhstan. So in Kazakhstan, we have two main official languages, Kazakh and Russian, but also the government strives to promote the role of English language. So English is taught from the first grade. And while it's taught from the first grade, the level of English skills remains relatively low. So we can refer to English as a EF index and multiple other studies. But it is possible to define a couple of problems in the current system of education, and I want to use it as the examples for my future points. So first is lack of students' engagement. So traditional textbooks may not engage students because they might not resonate with students' interests. So if you look at the screenshot, it is a part of the students' book from the 8th grade, which is used in Kazakhstani public schools. So you see that the topics are very much connected to teen scenes in Britain. So it might be extremely hard for students from Kazakhstan to relate to such topics because there is also the second point of limited cultural relevance and inclusivity in this topic. So in this way, we can also refer to traditional repetitive textbook activities, which usually follow the same path. When there is a topic, the text, and students just need to provide their responses to teachers. And we shouldn't forget, of course, about the multiple trillion exercises. So in this way, of course, there are multiple problems associated with the context, and these problems could be identified in many countries in East Asia and in Central Asia and so on. So these are more of the screenshots from the books. Again, very much aligned with the with a different context activities such as water sports, which is not applicable to the context of Kazakhstan. And I remember when I was a student at public school, it was extremely hard to differentiate between these activities of windsurf and so on. Again, I'm referring only to the context of Kazakhstan. And then again, we can have the monuments in danger with reference to different contexts. So here we can see some diversity, but usually it's very much limited. So this book's been published in 2017, and they're considered to be very much new. And you can see that there is a video part where students can have access to videos. But to what extent this content is actually tailored to students' needs remains unclear. And also, of course, in comparison to prior books, we now have relatively less of the grammar, but still half of the book, of student book, will be consistent of grammar exercises and drilling. So in this case, we have a reasonable question how to deal with this and what could be done. And multiple scholars can provide different solutions. So what I would like to propose is as a possible solution and as a topic of further discussion during the Q&A session is the place of informal learning activities. So informal digital learning, or in short, IDLE, as it has been defined by Jusun Lee, acting head of English Language Education Department at Education University of Hong Kong, is the self-directed English-mediated activities in extramural digital settings. So it's a big term which could be easily explained. So I would like to provide you some very simple explanation. So there are receptive informal learning activities, and there are productive informal learning activities. So receptive activities could be such as watching English YouTube videos, engaging in multiple chatting activities on social media, which would involve English. And this contrasts with traditional face-to-face classrooms, which often result in negative emotions like boredom or speaking anxiety. So students are more open, they tailor their needs to the content that they like. So they engage in the collaborations and discussions on the topics they actually consider interesting. And of course, we have receptive activities also, so such as watching videos and listening to music and so on. So when we conceptualize learning, it's important to understand where it stands in connection to formal education. So when formal education is connected to diplomas, to something that is structured fully by the teacher and by the curriculum, we also have non-formal and informal learning activities. So in this way, non-formal learning refers to activities which are not part of a curriculum, but also structured and guided by the role of teacher. So informal activities are more based on what students actually like to do. But it is also possible to discuss how to engage students and how it could help to provide inclusivity in English language teaching practices.
Dr. Artem, you have 5 minutes left.
Oh, thank you.
Reminder.
So first, it's important to underline the point of digital affordances. So with the development of technologies, there are more language learning opportunities. And based on that definition, we can consider that informal learning can address this by incorporating digital resources and digital platforms and the content which students like to address the problems which have been mentioned earlier. So for example, student-centered learning could involve students talking about their hobbies and presented on the topic of their interest. Cultural inclusivity is another point where the content that students consume could be more addressed to a more diverse community of English language learners globally. Variety of activities. When we have the informal learning activities or the content which comes from the other side rather than formally structured books only, it provides students opportunities to diversify their formal classroom activities. So in short, why informal learning? Well, first, it's accessibility. It uses commonly available resources. Personalization, because it allows learners to tailor their experiences. Contextual learning, reduce pressure, which is one of the most important points. I will not go in depth into that area, but the impact of informal learning as opposed to formal language learning education system in multiple contexts is connected to reduced pressure. So students do not have anxiety when they connect the topics that they actually interested in or the practices in which they consider to be themselves as masters, less pressuring. It can also help to build confidence and to build community engagement. So one of the examples, so these are the screenshots. I just want to point out one example. So when I conducted interviews with as a PhD student, I found out that one student who was attending public school, he never liked his lessons. So he always skipped them, but he was always engaged in informal learning activities. And in the 10th and 11th grade, he won the countrywide competition of English language skills. And the response to that was simple, because he liked what he did. So these are the examples of how he actually produced English. So he was very much involved in online gaming, and these are just some of the screenshots when he developed himself the scripts for Dungeons and Dragons. So there are multiple options how to integrate idle activities and formal learning activities. So we can start from in-class computer-assisted language learning, when technology can be incorporated into lesson plans as the supplementary function. At the next step, when we talk about the next step of students, when teachers can involve students in extracurricular activities outside the classroom, when they could have a task to form the community based on their interests and exchange resources. And finally, language teachers can help students create their own informal learning environments where they can continuously learn and use English in informal spaces afterwards. In this way, combining and bridging formal and informal environments. So one of the examples here is the integration of vlogs. When in English language class, teacher can introduce the concept of vlogging, and instead of having presentation on the topic, students can have a flexibility of choosing what they want to talk about. After that, the teacher can organize a project-based vlogging club as an extracurricular activity, and as a part of this club, students can provide, or they have a task to create the video based on their topic of interest. And after that, students can be encouraged to create their own personal vlogs based on their interests. This could be anything from gaming, music, sports, and so on. So in this way, introducing and facilitating informal language learning among students, and facilitating the exchange of these platforms and activities can help students in multiple ways, and also among them to address inclusivity of English language teaching practices. So teachers should advise and introduce activities. They should consider peer sharing sessions, which is a wonderful resource for students to share their experiences. And one of the ways to introduce informal learning activities to students and to make them visible, so that students understand and become aware of the impact of these activities, is through the continuum model, which I mentioned earlier. So there's a couple of the references applicable to the topic, and I would like to thank you for your attention. I'll be glad to respond to your questions and engage in communication right now. And here are just some of contact details. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Artem, for the insightful sharing. I'll just, before I summarize, I would like to remind our participants again to post your questions via Mentimeter. Please scan the QR code on the screen, or you can make use of the chat room. I believe that the speakers would love to answer your questions in the Q&A session later. Right, so just to summarize very quickly, Dr. Artem talked about harnessing informal digital learning of English idle for inclusive learning, and he explained to us the concept of equity and accessibility with regards to inclusivity in ELT, and he also gave us some examples where some books have limited cultural relevance, or rather very traditional and repetitive, and this reduces student engagement in the classroom. He also gave us some solutions, for example, practicing IDLE, self-directed English-mediated activities, and he explained to us about the productive and the receptive IDLE. And also practicing not only formal teaching, but also informal learning and carrying out various activities, as informal learning has many advantages such as personalization, it increases confidence, reduces anxiety, and many other reasons. Dr. Artem also talked about the 3 stages in integrating IDLE, for example, in class and carrying out extracurricular activities. Thank you so much. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Artem. Quick reminder, each participant will be given an opportunity to fill out a form to receive a certificate of participation for the 3rd AsiaTEFL webinar after the Q&A session. So please do stay on with us for further updates. Now, last but not least, please allow me to introduce our 3rd speaker, Dr. Isavera Sirirungruang. Dr. Isavera is an academician at Ratchasuda College, Mahidol University, Thailand. She is a distinguished researcher and advocate in the field of disability studies and has made significant contributions through her extensive body of work and has contributed in numerous conferences and journals. Her research focuses on the experiences and education of visually impaired students, as well as broader issues related to disability, rights, and inclusion. Dr. Isavera has presented her findings at various international conferences, shedding light on the challenges and opportunities for individuals with visual impairments. Her work has not only expanded our understanding of disability, but has also influenced policy and practice in Thailand and beyond. Dr. Isavera will be presenting on using universal design on learning to provide equitable English class for students with disabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Isavera.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. You hear me, right?
Yes, yes, we do.
Right, and the screen is already up.
Yes, it is.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, everyone. And, I'm very gratitude to be here today. So actually, well, may not be in the field of English language teaching. Yeah, but, well, just, I'm a visually impaired person, just as Madam Moderator already introduced me, that, I would like to present my perspective, as a person with visual impairment and also with, other disability, who are, when we are talking about inclusivity or equity, these are the terms that, is very broad and widespread use in the field of disability. Because in the past we are not really have being included, or you are may in all of your experiences, you may not really have a chance to meet that very much student with disabilities, in the past. But we are more in a special school, for example, special school for the blind, special school for the deaf, or other special school for other student with disabilities. But in my experience as a student with visual impairment, let me go back to before I am here now, that I also have a chance to learn with my friends with visual impairment in the special school for the blind, and also as well as I have a chance to learn with my sighted peers, sighted friends in what we call so-called now is inclusive school, or the school that we have so many students with various backgrounds studying together, and the challenges that I faced long time ago and still now, even though just now Dr. Ashi talked about the digital technology, right? Yeah, but we still face many challenges in, as he said, accessibility. But accessibility for us is a bit different, and I will going to talk about it later. Okay, so the challenges as a student with visual impairment in the past and now is that we have difficulty to access textbooks, of course, because in the past textbooks are in print, and even nowadays it is more in electronic format. We still face difficulty if because we have to use assistive technology, so-called like screen reader. You may you may see that I have like an earphone to my ear because I'm listening to my screen reader reading out the screen for me. Yeah, so if the technical is not make it accessible or compatible with the assistive technology, the student with visual impairment or other disability will have a difficulty accessing the curriculum or the materials or textbooks or even the teaching instructions. If the teacher is like using just like blackboard or whatever teaching, and then you don't really read out what is on the screen or on the board. So-called student in your class, some of them may not be able to access what you are saying, like you and also the assessment. When I have an experience that teaching taking the test like English IELTS or TOEFL or many others like English language testing. That's that if you have like pictures and without any description, that will be difficult or impossible for student like me with visual impairment to access. Yeah, so because like we talk about inclusivity, inclusive education, so called, that we may heard or have heard a lot more and more nowadays, and I'm expected that all of you as a teacher or lecturers in the school or in the university, you will have more and more diverse classroom, right? With of course you in many other countries or even in Thailand nowadays, you will have students with come from different background, culture, or students who have different needs. And we may they may have like English as a second language, or they may have many other different backgrounds. But one of the group is students with disabilities. With inclusive education, more and more students with disabilities are in the class, in general classroom. With you may have already have an experience with students with visual impairment, student with hearing impairment, student with learning disabilities, or many other types of disabilities. So as teacher, how are we going to make our classroom or our English class in particular to make it accessible and equitable to all students in the class? Yeah. So well, as I mentioned earlier, that we in the field of disability, we have like this term like equity and equality, because like we try to strive for to get to be more equal with other our non-disabled counterparts, but and we have differences between these two terms. Equality, in the but like a deficit model that Dr. Lin said earlier, that the problem is within the student, so teacher has to do nothing. You you teach everything the same, without considering or trying to meet the needs of particular students. That is, I have experience when I did my PhD and asked the teachers whether do you think students with visual impairment have textbooks just like other students? And they said yes. Yeah, they have equal access to textbook, but that textbooks is in print. You imagine how a student with visual impairment to have equal access to print textbooks. In fact, if you going to make it equitable, they have an equity or equal chance to with other students, the textbook should be in other formats such as like braille or electronic format that is accessible by screen reader software. That will be like equity or equitable. Let me show you with this picture. I'm sure that many of you may already have seen this picture. Because like with three people in the picture, right? With the very tall guy and to the smallest guy. And if you make it equal, then not everyone will be able to see the game, right? Because like the shorter guy will have no any accommodation or anything to help him. But in the right hand side, the with provision of the of boxes to make it to more equitable. The short guy will be able to see the game as well. So this is just the apply to our class or our curriculum or material. It means that with different needs in this my choice about student with disability, it is important that you're going to make it more either accommodation or to use differences in ways of teaching to in order to make it accessible to students with different disabilities. So, but teacher is going to say that, well, we have a lot of students in the class, and how are we going to, be able to focus only to the individual student? What about the rest? That is quite challenging for the teacher as well, because we have responsibility to teach all students. Yeah. So what we have in the disability field, and is that we call universal design on learning. The background of universal design on learning is from I'm sure many of you will have already heard about the word universal design or UD, which is it started in the architectural field. It's when you go to places nowadays, you will recognize that for example, if you go to the hotel or to department store or to the bank, you may see the counter of the receptionist, with the high level of the counter, and also the other you may have a side by side with the counter is more like smaller. I mean, at the lower level, or even in the toilet, in the bathroom, when you go to department store, you will see that we have like a basin, a wash basin, which is like at the standing level, or like someone sitting on the wheelchair level. Like maybe we think that it's for children. It's possible that it's for children, but also for someone who is using a wheelchair. That
Dr. Isawera, you've got about 5 minutes left. And would you like to adjust your microphone? It's not as loud as earlier.
Right. I'm not sure I have good. Can you hear me better? I'm trying to speak louder. Yeah.
It's going loud and soft, but never mind. Please continue.
I'm not sure whether it's the internet connection. Right. Yeah. Okay. So this is like, yeah, okay, so this we apply this universal design into in the learning. So we call universal design on learning. Yeah. I'm sorry that I'm not sure what's the problem with my microphone. So many people is talking. Yeah.
No
Right.
worries, no worries.
Yeah.
You can still hear
Okay.
you.
Yeah, so this is like just to make sure that there's a student has variety of way of needs, and then we try to enhance learning experiences, and their outcome by using the universal design on learning. That is mean the teacher is trying to anticipate or that we're going to see face or with students with different needs in our class. So what can we do? It's universal design. We have three main principles. That is the principle, multiple means of representation. It means that we recognize that different students have different learning style. Not only students with disabilities, but also, students without disability, they also have different preference of learning style, right? So we have options for them for perception, for comprehension, and for with the use the symbol or language that is the uh, accessible to them. And the second principle is about the multiple means of action and expression. It means that when students already learn, but we also give them more ways to express what they learn. Not they can either use physical action or to use the different ways of communication and expressions or executive function. This is how they're going to present to us that in different ways, that how what they learn, and how they learn. Yeah. And the last one is how to the multiple means of engagement. It's like how to make the student be more engaged in our class, because we have to catch their interest, right? And to sustain their interest to the lesson, to the class. And so this is like, they can either we have more ways for them to engage, like to maybe we are there to for them to ask the question, or tell them why that they have to study each particular lesson. So these are just like three main principle of UDL, universal design on learning. Maybe you can search that on Google, and then you will find a lot of uh research and articles about universal design on learning. Yeah, so in like your clearer picture is that you can apply this with your method of teaching. For example, you either only use lecture, you can use discussion, or other role play, or other ways of teaching. I'm sure you all have like more experience in, like how you're going to teach English in your class and make it more interesting to the students, and also meet their needs. And also the materials, media and materials. And nowadays, just now, like the second speaker already talked about the digital. In the past, like it's only we have only print, right? But nowadays we have more like electronic format. We have audio or visual. We can use different materials and media in the class in order to catch our students' attention, and then to make it more accessible. Like I'm sure like video that you have like a caption video, with the caption at the bottom part of the screen, and also at the like and sometimes you have like audio description, with the like a narrator that give what is happening visually on the screen for students with visual impairment. And also like for assessment, you can use different ways, like some even presentation, for them to present, either for like sign language for students with who have hearing impairment, or for those with visual impairment, they may prefer to use audio recording, or many other ways that you can assess them, that to make them express how they uh, learn, and whether they learn from what you already taught. And and also maybe traditional tests, right? We may have different types of question, like multiple choice or essays, or describe the picture. But we have to be cautioned that if we have pictures, how are we going to address the needs of students with visual impairment? Are we going
Dr.
to
Isavera, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but it's time is up. Could
All
you
right. Yes, that's
finish?
already finished. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is is in summary is that flexibility is the key. Yeah, for UDL. So it doesn't like one size doesn't fit all. So just use multiple ways, and I'm sure we already know what we as a teacher can address the needs of students. Thank you very much. Yeah, and sorry for the
No
delay.
worries. No worries. Thank you so much, Dr. Isavera, for the insightful sharing. We are moving on now to our question and answer session. These questions have been taken from those posted on Mentimeter and the Zoom chat. Please start sharing your questions via Mentimeter. While waiting for your questions to come in, let me just quickly summarize what Dr. Isavera shared with us today. She presented on using universal design on learning to provide equitable English classes for students with disabilities. She discussed about providing education and education experience that is equitable, inclusive, and that meets the needs of our students, and using universal design, UDL. And also, I think the key takeaway for us would be Dr. Isavera so rightly distinguished between equality and equity. Equality is some things that are similar, people with similar, providing some things that are similar, or things with similar needs. And equity is receiving different things according to one's needs and limitation. And I think the visual that you provided was it will be very memorable. We'll remember that for a very long time, that we should provide learning experiences that are both equal and that has equity principles as well. And then Professor Isavera also talked about principles of UDL that comprises multiple means of representation, action, and expression, as well as engagement. So once again, thank you so much, Dr. Isavera, for the insightful presentation. And now we will start the question and answer session. Just give me a moment. Let me have a look at the questions. For Dr. Isavera, there's a question for you. Based on the topic inclusive education for the learners with impairment, I am curious, since I am not equipped on how to teach them, how will I teach them colors, or how will I teach them sound? Should I repeat the question?
Right. Colors and sound, but I'm not sure whether the person who asked is that you refer to person with visual impairment or hearing impairment, because like student with different type of disabilities will have different type of limitation and challenge. So for those with visual impairment, okay, if they are visual impairment like blind since birth, that the colors is typical, because like they will never see colors, but what they only learn is that they learn from the tone, how colors, like for example yellow refer to brightness, to or red to hot or heat. Only that student with visual impairment who are like blind since birth will learn. Yeah, but for hearing impairment, sound is, well, for if they are totally deaf, that is impossible, of course, but we have to make the way, the other way around, to teach them with other thing that is may not be, related to sound, but we still have, like, because in English or in any language, it's like we talk about reading, writing, speaking, listening, right? Speaking is not going to be like speaking in the same way, but it's going to be like sign language. But we with the not with the sound, but with gesture. Yeah, and listening, well, that will be different because, like, in many other tests, like TOEFL or IELTS, you will not for those with hearing impairment, they will not test you on listening because it's impossible. Yeah, right.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Isavera. The next question is for Dr. Artem. What content should be included for lower level students in the lessons of third languages? What content should be included for lower level students in the lessons of third languages?
Thank you. Thank you for this question. Well, if we talk about the development of any language, it's important to indeed to consider the level of students. So for lower level students, it's of course we need to have some main topics which are in curriculum, but it's also important to contextualize these topics and try to adapt it to students' needs. So again, what some of the interesting ways, and it's aligned with the trends, with the implications of ChatGPT, is that it allows us to generate a lot of content as language teachers. So asking ChatGPT to generate some text which could be aligned to the interests of students would be quite interesting. So instead of providing them very generic texts which are not connected to them, so understanding the interests of your students could be the first step, and using this interest further to establish this text and to introduce vocabulary and the content and grammar to some extent, which you try to integrate into a lesson, could be an approach. So in this way, I saw one of the questions was also about the trends in technologies. The current trends of language learning and teaching with using digital tools, and here is where we can use and we can impact a lot from the use of ChatGPT, because ChatGPT, based on the prompts which we have, could really help us to generate content. So if before we could have spent multiple hours creating the text, now providing the prompts could actually help us to design materials and to easily adapt them in a couple of minutes. So for language teachers, for language educators, it's a great tool. So I hope I answered the question you asked to some extent. Thank
you, Dr. Artem. The next question is directed to Dr. Isavera. One of the participants is asking, I'm interested to learn more of implementation of UDL in group activities in class. Could you please share some of your experiences in this implementation? Thank you. Could you please share some of your experiences in the implementation of UDL?
Thank you very much. Actually, in UDL, you may have like for example, now we have like a training for student with different types of needs. Of course, when for example, we have an activity with the handouts that we are going to give it out to a student to do the work, right? We can, one of the way is that you can use the some student will use print, some will use braille, or some will use electronic format. You have to be prepared with different types of materials. And also when you present the group activity, you may consider how whether you have a student with learning style, with different learning style, right? Like some will visually, or some they are more auditory, some is like kinesthetic, like you have to decide your activity to be more like, whether, to address all these students. Like, for example, this morning we have like it's not English, but it's about like, we it's a training of soft skill. We have a student to learn, to build a tower from marshmallow and spaghetti. So, it's a hands-on, and then all some of them are visually impaired and some of them are hearing impaired. So they can touch, to and have a hands-on, and some enjoy by giving their opinion on what to do with, how to make the tower as possible. Like, a different student can have different participation role in the group activity as well. So when you if you decide the activity, to by considering that, they can have different ways of participation to either visually, or they can just give the opinion, or they can also have the hands-on to participate. That will be like, like a more universal design that you think of with multiple ways that a student can, participate and engage. Right. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Isabella. And I suppose teachers have to get very creative in the classroom. Next question is for either speakers. Dr. Isabella, if you feel you think you want to jump in and answer this, or Dr. Artem, please do so. What the question is, what is the extent to which a teacher demonstrates flexibility in class? The question is, what is the extent to which a teacher demonstrates flexibility in class? Dr. Artem or Dr. Isabella?
Very interesting, but a very broad question.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from my side, if the Dr. Isabella, you don't mind, I can start. So I would say that it's adaptability and flexibility of the practices, the flexibility to adapt curriculum to correspond to students' needs, or to adapt curriculum to provide up-to-date topics, for example. So rather than focusing on the texts which are available in English textbooks, which could be not exactly aligned with up-to-date trends. So I would say that two of these things come into my mind when you mentioned this question.
Okay. May I share my answer? I would say that first of all, you have to think of what is the learning objective of that particular activity or lesson, right? And then if you have a learning objective in mind, then you will find a way how are you going to include the students. For example, it may be different ways, but meet to meet the same goal. For example, if you're going to travel to for example, in Thailand, going travel to Malaysia, you may have different ways of traveling, right? You can go either by plane or on the road, right? Or maybe on you cruise, different ways. That is the flexibility that you allow the student to walk or choose, or you allow the student to either use to meet your particular goal. For example, if you say that you want the student to achieve their reading skill, a student may be able to read through print, or nowadays we have like a digital software like Microsoft Team that I heard that from one of my colleagues. He used it. They have like a reading activity on the Microsoft Team, and then she tried to, whether it's possible for students with visual impairment to use it, and then to improve their reading skill. The student will have to use like two devices, one to listen to the screen reader and the other one, with the Microsoft Team. So it's a bit different way but they also achieve or use can practice reading as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Artem and Dr. Isavera, for answering all the questions. Now, just a quick reminder that our webinar isn't over yet. We will let you know soon about how to get an e-certificate. Just before we do that, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our AsiaTEFL professional network committee members who work behind the scenes to organize the webinar series. Let's see. Let's watch the video for a short while. So these are the 18 committee members from Malaysia and Thailand who have worked together to ensure the webinar series 2023 is conducted successfully. Regarding the sponsorship, Chun Cheon National University of Education has sponsored a Zoom account with a capacity of 1,000 attendees, which we are utilizing for this 2023 webinar series. The AsiaTEFL webinar series committee members would like to express our heartfelt gratitude for this sponsorship. We are moving on to the closing remarks. Now, please allow me to invite Professor Suwarse Madya for a closing speech. Professor Suwarse Madya. We can't hear you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tamir.
Yes.
I would like to deliver my closing remark. First of all, dearest President Jo Kwon Park, Presidents-elect Professor Prakasit Siddiqui and Isha Wonku Ju, Vice Presidents, AsiaTEFL colleagues, and all the participants. Let me first offer you a very good afternoon, morning, evening, depending where you are. May you all be blessed with great happiness, health, and prosperity. I hope you agree with me that today's webinar has been another success due to your enthusiasm as participants and the invaluable contributions made by the these three scholars as speakers, Professor Jilin Sun, Seattle College, USA, Dr. Isavara Sirirongwong, Mahidol University, and Dr. Artem Jordi, sorry if I mistakenly pronounce your name, Education University of Hong Kong. The topics which have been derived from the theme exploring inclusive practices in ELT, creating equitable materials and curriculum design, have deepened our insights into practices of inclusive ELT learning with three crucial points. First, Professor Yilin's presentation has made us aware of the complexity of translating the noble value of inclusivity to ensure that English language learners with diverse characteristics, different learning needs, and various cultural backgrounds enjoy their right to learning with equal opportunities. However, appropriate strategies and considerations by prioritizing equity, diversity, inclusion, and access idea offer a promising solution. Second, with technology, the challenges of realizing inclusivity in in engaging English language learners can be eased through the IDLE or Informal Digital Learning of English framework developed by Dr. Artem Jordi. The good news is that the framework is successful in engaging students. Third, we have been made aware of the importance of ensuring the inclusion of students with disabilities in our ELT service. And I have experienced observation in the schools we supervised at the time, in special schools. So I was very happy to hear Dr. Isavara explaining that. This is also a big challenge, which can be answered through the UDL proposed by Dr. Isavara Sirirongwong to provide equitable, inclusive education experience by applying the UDL principles, that is multiple means of representation, action expressions, as well as engagement. All of this has certainly broadened our horizons of viewing English language teaching service, which may strengthen our commitment to reaching everyone through equitable materials and curriculum design. In this connection, on behalf of AsiaTEFL, let me convey my sincere thanks and highest appreciation to our three speakers for today's webinar. My great thanks and appreciation also go to all participants, without whom this webinar will not be what it is, and certainly to our MC today, Ms. Thambir Kaur Selton. Finally, let me express my heartfelt thanks and appreciation for the hard work of the organizing committee. It's 18 people, right? Under the leadership of Professor Prakasit Sittikul. See you all and possibly your colleagues in the next webinar in November this year. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Over to you, Ms. Thambir.
Thank you so much, Professor Suwarse Madhya, for your lovely closing remarks. With that, I would like to thank all the participants for attending the third AsiaTEFL webinar. We'd like to take some photographs before we end the session. Can you please switch on your cameras so that we can take some photographs?
All right, to make sure we get the best shots, let's all give a big smile on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Please keep smiling as we have a few pages on Zoom today. One more, please. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kitbat.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Once again, I must thank our speakers for their wonderful presentation, contribution, and time. Of course, thanks to our wonderful participants who actively engaged during this webinar. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Professor. Now it's time for e-certificates. As I informed you earlier, we are happy to issue an e-certificate to all of you who have attended this webinar. As you can see on the screen, the link in the QR code is displayed. Please use your device to either enter the link or scan the QR code. This will direct you to an e-form, which you can put your details in. The e-form is now open and will disappear. The link, it will disappear in 15 minutes. So please complete it now. We are also here with you to answer your questions about e-certificates if you may have any questions for us. Our e-certificate is computer generated based where you have to key in the details. Please ensure that your email address is correct and all the spaces and dots and symbols are correct. This is to ensure that we can send it to the correct email address. Please be sure that you write down your name and your email address clearly, because we will not be reissuing any e-certificate in case of spelling errors. So please double check your name and email address before sending it to us. We would appreciate that very much. Your certificates will be emailed to you within 2 weeks once the e-certs have been sent. We will send out a notification email to everyone who registered for the event. Please let us know in case you do not receive your e-certificate. Please join us again for our 4th and last webinar for this year on the 25th of November, entitled ELT in the Elementary and Secondary Classrooms, What Really Works. For those who have completed filling in the form, thank you. You will receive your e-certificate soon. This is now the end of the session. On behalf of AsiaTEFL Professional Network Committee, we would like to thank you once again for your participation. Please stay tuned and visit our AsiaTEFL website for more information and updates. In the meantime, stay safe, take care, and bye for now.